Green Lantern number 17, written by Jeff Johns, art by Doug Mahnke, along with Dan Jurgens and Phil Jimenez. This is the first part of Wrath of the First Lantern, and it's a whoozy bob. So we open up 10 billion years ago with Krona trying to look at the beginning of the universe, and he keeps on rewinding the clock. Ganthet's outside the door being like, hey man, you really can't do that. And he's like, psh, watch me. And then all of a sudden, as they bust into the room, the hand of creation shows on the screen. And he's like, oh, here it is. I did it. I saw it. And Ganthet's like, you really shouldn't be looking at that. That's kind of a big, bad idea. And Krona just tells him, nah, you're superstitious. It's no big deal. But then all of a sudden, the hand curls up. And it apparently has a Green Lantern ring on it. And everyone's like, well, what's going on with that? And then the screen explodes. And everyone is slightly injured. And as Ganthet wakes up, he sees like a stereotypical U.S. astronaut entering. And he's like, hey, I've been traveling against time and space to get here. My name is Volthoom, and I come in peace, as he looks absolutely menacing. So that's the prologue. Then we get to the story proper, where Simon Baz gives a entire history of, hey, just in case you weren't reading this book during the Rise of the Third Army, here's what's going on. I'm currently in a vault in space because I went into a book of Black Lanterns at the end of Rise of the Third Army. And as he gets there, he meets the Black Lantern, Black Hand, and Black Hand's like, who are you? Did the Guardian send you? And he's like, I have no idea where I am or like what's going on, but I'm a new Green Lantern. And Black Hand says like, well, you're in a vault, so that was pretty stupid of you. And Simon reveals that he's trying to look for Hal Jordan. That's his only goal right now. And Hand says, well, he's dead, and I'm going to kill you too, because the only good Green Lantern's a dead one. So he starts trying to attack him, and Simon's like, no, you don't understand. Like, the Guardians are going to destroy the core. And the Black Hand's like, why in the world would he ever want to do that? And then Simon conjures up a Green Lantern truck to hit Hands with, and he's like, I don't know, I'm new. So at that point, Simon's trying to figure out what's going on. He hears voices from the other side of the vault, which are the other Guardians that got trapped in there. And Black Hand comes back out and just be like, okay, look, regardless, you're going to get me out of here. I am sick and tired of staring at these walls. And he starts strangling Simon. Then we get the First Lantern, who has taken the Guardians captive, and he's back on the planet Maltuz, and he's basically like, hey, Guardians, you guys really screwed me over. You guys did bad things to me, so I'm going to see what I can do to you. And he pulls out Ganthet, and he's like, hey, Ganthet, I remember that you had a little tether to emotion. Why is that gone now? Let me see your constellation, which is basically just the story of your life all at once. And we see Ganthet's entire history laid out on the pages. And First Lantern sees the moment in, I think it was like Green Lantern New Guardians issue 1, where he gets his emotion drained from him. And he's like, huh, okay, well, that's new. Anyway, let's see. I have this special power where I can go back in time and make changes. Let's see how that works out. And so they go back to the moment where the Guardians chose to betray Volthoom, the First Lantern, and he was like, all right, we're going to go back then, and instead of you guys getting rid of your emotions at that point, you're going to convince them to keep their emotions, and we're going to see what happens there. And so the moment plays out, and Ganthet basically has no choice but to obey. And he convinces all the other Guardians, like, hey, yeah, the First Lantern has power over a bunch of emotional things, but we should be even more in tune with our emotions. Sound good? And they're like, yep. And then all of a sudden, we cut back to Black Hand and Simon Baz, and time starts going a bit wobbly. Black Hand suddenly loses his powers and has no idea why he's there, and Simon is replaced with Abin Sur, like the original Green Lantern. And just as soon as they start getting their bearings, time goes wobbly again and replaces them. And Black Hand's like, what? What did you just do? And Simon's like, I don't know, it wasn't me. So then he gets a Green Lantern hammer, busts through the walls of the vault, and sees the other Guardians on the other side. So then we see back in the Maltuz, First Lantern apparently is too weak because of all of his time imprisoned and how they drained the energy from him. So he has a plan to go to all the other Green Lantern books and all the other lanterns and use them in the same sort of what if sort of story. And so that's what's going to happen here. But one last thing we get is as Simon's talking to the other Guardians who were trapped, he's like, hey, you guys are Guardians, right? You're the ones who screwed this up. Black Hand sneaks up behind him, puts him into his black ring the same way he did Hal Jordan, and we see a final page of Simon arriving right next to Sinestro and Hal, with Sinestro going, please tell me you are not the one that are supposed to be rescuing us. So that's the beginning of the Wrath of the First Lantern. I think it did a good job of setting up that First Lantern is a force to be reckoned with and that he can literally rewrite history. I don't think they quite explain why. That seems a little bit out there, but regardless, it's setting up the threat. I feel like the Simon plot was probably stretched a bit too thin because quite literally 3/4 of all of Simon's stuff was just Black Hand going, hey, let me out of here. And Simon going, I don't know what you're talking about. So, yeah, that probably could have been a little bit shorter. But overall, I like the issue. Yeah, no, it's a fine start. I think art-wise it looks good, and dialogue it makes sense. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give this one I'll give it a 7.5. I'm liking it, and it has a lot of room to grow. So we'll see where we go on. Oh, and it says follow it to Green Lantern Corps 17, where I'm assuming we'll pick right up.